In 2002, while interviewing for his Resident Evil blockbuster, director Paul W.S. Anderson was asked what his next project will be. He revealed that he was working on a Death Race 2000 sequel with the working title of Death Race 3000. The idea to revitalize the Death Race IP started 10 years prior when Anderson met Death Race 2000's executive producer Roger Corman at the 7th Annual Tokyo International Film Festival. Following the 2002 interview, news of production was sparse. However, by 2004, Tom Cruise was rumored to be attached to the film. Cruise was on board as a film lead as well as producer with his producing partner Paula Wagner. When asked about an update on the production, Roger Corman said that Tom Cruise was unhappy with the first two drafts and a third screenplay was requested. Anderson described the drafts and said that the remake was a riff on the first film. "It's not a straight remake at all," he explained. "The first movie was an across-America race. This will be an around-the-world race, and it's set further in the future, so the cars are even more futuristic. So you've got cars with rockets, machine guns, force fields, cars that can split apart and reform, a bit like Transformers. Cars that become invisible." Another 2 years fly by and Anderson was officially attached to the film, describing the latest screenplay as a reimagining and describing the tone as more straight. The tone they went with is not as much as a parody or a satire as the original though. They had taken the obsession of reality television and turned it up to 11 into an extreme form where it was described as drivers being the gladiators and the track the Coliseum.
Stay true to, the slightly irreverent tone of Death Race 2000 without becoming intentionally campy. I wanted to tell a more serious story and have it be a darker movie with still comedy in it, but not kind of campy comedy.
Additionally, they had chosen to limit the use of CGI and move on to a more practical way of filmmaking, citing the French Connection and The Road Warrior as inspiration. By the mid-2000s, the film started to take shape into what we are able to recognize in the final film. Death Race was released on August 22, 2008 to a less than stellar opening. It opened third in the box office behind Tropic Thunder on its second week of release, and The Bunny, which opened up on the same day. With a budget of an estimated $45 million, Death Race's opening weekend came in at $12 million. At its final theatrical run, it brought in a domestic total of $36 million and international of $39 million for a worldwide sum of $76 million. The movie, titled Death Race, received an R rating for strong violence and language.
"You can fucking shoot me, but you just can't, motherfucker, kill me!"
The total runtime is 105 minutes, and in genre it is labeled as action, sci-fi, and thriller. Critically, Death Race is standing at a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes currently has a 45% critics and 60% audience approval rating, and on Metacritic it is sitting at 43. Roger Ebert wrote, "Hitchcock said a movie should play the audience like a piano. Death Race played me like a drum. It is an assault in all the senses, including comment. Let us conclude that Death Race is not a brand that guarantees quality." Jason Statham was born on July 26, 1967 in Shirebrook, United Kingdom. Jason Statham plays Jensen Ames, who is falsely imprisoned on Terminal Island and forced to take on the mantle of the fan-favorite driver Frankenstein. Statham's two previous films were War in 2007 and The Bank Job in 2008. Death Race was followed by Transporter 3, which was also released in 2008, and Crank High Voltage in 2009. Joan Allen was born on August 20th, 1956 in Rochelle, Illinois. Tony Award-winning and three-time Academy Award nominee Joan Allen plays the role of the warden on Terminal Island and Ames' antagonist off the track. Leading up to the release of Death Race, she starred in Bonneville in 2006 and The Bourne Ultimatum in 2007. After Death Race, she starred in Hachi, A Dog's Tale in 2009 and The Bourne Legacy in 2012. Tyrese Darnell Gibson was born on December 30th, 1978 in LA, California. Tyrese Gibson plays the role of Machine Gun Joe, who is Ames' rival and antagonist on the track. Leading up to Death Race, he starred in Transformers and The Take, both in 2007. After Death Race, Gibson returned to Transformers in the sequel, Revenge of the Fallen in 2009, as well as Fast 5 in 2011.
We actually do get thrown around.
Natalie Martinez was born on July 12, 1994 in Miami, Florida. Martinez plays Case, who is Frankenstein's passenger and helps navigate the course, as well as reloads the weapons for him. Although not having starred in any movies up until Death Race, Martinez has experience working on television with Fashion House and Saints and Sinners. She returned to the silver screen in Magic City Memoirs in 2011 and The Baytown Outlaws in 2012.
If you see what one of those things do.
Paul W.S. Anderson was born in Newcastle upon Tyne, England on March 4th, 1965. Anderson's previous two directed movies are Resident Evil in 2002 and Alien vs. Predator in 2004. After Death Race, he directed Resident Evil Afterlife, which is the fourth installment in the Resident Evil franchise, and The Three Musketeers. Honorable mentions include David Carradine reprising the role of Frankenstein from the 1975 Death Race 2000 in a loosely connected cameo. Additionally, Golden Globe winner Ian McShane has a supporting role as a race crew's pit lead known as Coach.
Dom and Cypher got into the country without us knowing. Ghost lights.
I thought untraceable aircraft was all internet conspiracy stuff.
It's not. Satellites and radar grids all across the globe shift like an ocean. And they've got channels that open and close, and theoretically, if you know the right people who know the right patterns,
You can fly right through the blind spots completely undetected.
So you know where Dom is headed?
yeah, New York.
The movie opens up with text that establishes the world we currently live in. It is 2012, the US has hit economic collapse, and with record unemployment numbers, crime rate has spiked. As a result, the prison system breaks and private institutions run all facilities for profit. Terminal Island begins to stream deadly cage fights online and creates a ratings sensation. However, after some time, the audience got bored and demanded more, which results in Death Race being born. After the text, we are then thrown into a race in progress. David Carradine cameos as Frankenstein, and Natalie Martinez's Case is riding passenger. Case remarks that all their defensive weapons are not working, leading to Frankenstein to drop their huge rear armor plate, leaving them exposed. Case realizes the position they're in and decides to eject out, while Frankenstein believes he can cross the finish line and win the race. Unfortunately, Case was right, and right before the finish line is crossed, Machine Gun Joe torpedoes Frankenstein, leading to his car exploding and crossing the finish line in a ball of fire. The stream then cuts to black. During the opening credits, we see Jensen Ames finishing his job at a steel mill that is being closed down. He exits the building and collects his final wage. Later that day, Ames gets home and is beginning to wind down with his wife and baby. He takes a quick shower, during which his wife is cooking dinner in the kitchen when a masked man appears behind her. Jensen walks into the kitchen and sees his wife laying on the floor, and the masked man knocks Jensen out and stages him as a killer by placing a bloody knife on his hands. Right before completely blacking out, Ames was able to see the masked man shoot him with a finger gun. Jensen wakes up to the police yelling at him and cuffing him as he looks at his wife in horror. 6 months later, we see Jensen being bussed into the Terminal Island. The next day, Ames sits down to eat his lunch when Panchenko, played by Max Ryan, begins to harass him. A fight breaks out and is quickly stopped by the guards. Officer Ulrich, played by Jason Clarke, escorts James to Warden Hennessy's office, played by Joan Allen. Here, Hennessy notices that Ames used to be a professional driver and tries to recruit him for the Death Race.
Frank died on an operating table not long after his last race. I want you to become Frankenstein.
We then cut to the garage where Ames begins to get acquainted with his new pit crew. Here we meet Coach, Gunner, and Lists, played by Ian McShane, Jacob Vargas, and Frederick Kohler, respectively. We also get a rundown of the basics that go into the preparation of each race, as well as the car he will be driving. Finishing up the lengthy set of exposition, Lists begin detailing the lethality of the other drivers. During the conversation, a busload of new inmates gets dropped off, and Ames notices the bracelet that they're wearing. Coach tells them that they are tracking bracelets in case an inmate decides to escape. Jensen flashbacks to the night his wife was killed, and the masked man was wearing a tracking bracelet that he recognized when he shot at him with his finger gun. Race Day Stage 1 is here and Hennessy is suiting him up in Frank's signature mask and ring. Once suited up, Frank gets escorted to the racetrack where Coach and the other crews are gearing up for the race. Case arrives by a corrections bus from the women's facility and gets dropped off along with other navigators. With everyone ready, Hennessy begins the broadcast and the countdown begins. Over the radio, Coach reminds Ames that the power-ups don't get activated until the second lap.
This is a 3-lap race. Hennessy doesn't activate the weapons till lap 2. It's first come, first served, so it pays to be out.
The race begins and Jensen begins losing his position to the other drivers. He recovers positions by taking shortcuts thanks to Case's help.
Punch it! Hard left up ahead!
Now entering the second lap, the race becomes lethal with swords and shields activated. Almost immediately, Grim takes out Syed with a death hit. Moments later, Grim loses control of his vehicle, and as he's spinning out of control, he gets blown up, yet survives. With Colt on the tail, Jensen employs a bit of ingenuity to remove him. In the last stretch of the race, Jensen is side by side with Pachenko when Pachenko gestures a finger gun at him. Jensen recognizes that he's the masked man who killed his wife. Just as he's realizing that, Machine Gun Joe T-bones him out of the race and Frankenstein ends in last place. In the garage, Jensen is working on the Mustang when he sees Pachenko walk by. He follows him into his pit to confront him, but is instead ambushed and beaten. Lists comes in to save him, and once Jensen has Pachenko submitted, Pachenko spills that Hennessy ordered the hit, and Ulrich was in on it as well.
Hennessy made me do it.
Race Day 2 is here, and Ames' primary goal is Pachenko. The race begins, but Ames decides to take it easy off the starting line. He drops back to ask Case a couple of questions. In the questioning, Case reveals that Hennessy made her sabotage the rear weapons in order to make Frank lose the race.
Why would Hennessy want that?
To keep Frank here, racing.
With all the information now, he decides to catch up with the rest of the drivers and especially Pachenko. On the track, they go back and forth and Frank manages to make Pachenko crash and flip his car. With the car out of commission, Jensen exits out of his car and avenges his wife's death by snapping Pachenko's neck.
She's next.
Hennessy orders the guards to release the dreadnought. The drivers are not concerned with each other anymore as now they have a behemoth of a vehicle launching rockets at them. Reagans and Carson are the first two casualties in this stage at the hands of the dreadnought. Further down the lap, 14K's Porsche gets ensnared in the blanket of folks in the rear end of the big rig, and with no way to unhook himself, the tank gets an easy kill. Jensen gets an idea of how to fight back and patches into Machine Gun Joe's radio and informs him off screen. With a plan in place, we see both Jensen and Joe under fire and quickly overtake the dreadnought. Once in front, they activate a death head which catches the dreadnought crew by surprise and they drive into it at full speed. That night in the garage, Machine Gun Joe confronts Jensen about his suspicions. At the same time, Hennessy and Ulrich conspire to kill Jensen and plan a bomb in his car. The following day, Coach shows Jensen footage of the racetrack and an escape route that was exposed by one of the explosions earlier in stage 1 of the death race. In a show of respect, Jensen goes into Machine Gun Joe's pit and have another talk off screen. Race Day 3 is here with only 2 drivers left, Frank and Machine Gun Joe.
7 men, just Frankenstein and Machine Gun Joe survive.
Halfway through the second lap, Machine Gun Joe shoots a trio of rockets at Jensen, to which are evaded by him, and they explode on the wall, creating a hole for the cars to escape through. Cop cars and a pair of helicopters are released after them. On the narrow bridge, Jensen releases the gas and causing an explosion that stops a land pursuit. The escaping duo drive through some industrial complex and part ways. In the shadows, Ames jumps out of the car while Case continues to drive. The helicopters stop the Mustang and Frankenstein is apprehended. Back in Terminal Island, Hennessy believes that she still won in the end, and a gift is given to her by quote-unquote viewers for the record number of subscribers. She opens the gift and it is revealed to be the same bomb that had been planted in the Mustang, and Coach detonates it. Machine Gun Joe and Jensen escape together and are seen in Mexico fixing cars in a junkyard. Case rendezvous with him after some time, and she meets Ames's daughter. The movie closes with narration letting us know that even with his flaws, he still loves his daughter more than anything else.
Something else, something better. And there's no way I'm letting go of that.